Kiley Peters, it is so nice to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me, Jenny.
I'm excited for today.
Me too. Let's do this.
We
Let's
were
get
just
in.
we were just talking a bit about your story before we hit the record button. So I'm incredibly excited. But of course, it's the messy middle. We're in season 2. And so it starts with our feet trapped in muck. So when was that moment where you were like, holy crap, this is not working?
Boy, I don't know if there was one specific moment because it just kept coming. It was
Mm.
like a snowball of moments. But for me, let's see, 2021 was a shit show for me. The whole year was like slaps in the face and like a
Mhm.
lot of angst, anxiety, friction, struggle, all of the things. And I got to December of 2021 and I had just gotten engaged to my high school sweetheart. The business was Brainchild Studios, my agency at the time. I was just struggling because I was focused on trying to build it to be huge and, a bajillion people because that's what it was supposed to be. While I had also started my consulting practice at the time because that's what I really wanted to do. And so I had spent the whole year balancing both of these, feeling like it'll work. I'll be fine. It'll all be fine. And then I got engaged. We celebrated my agency's 5-year anniversary. I got engaged. And then shortly after that, I realized I'd been having heart palpitations all year. And I was like, so that's probably not great. And also, I hate all of this. Like, this all sucks. And I knew that we being my now husband and I, we wanted to start a family. And I was like, I'm not getting younger. And I was 35 at the time, which is for women, scary age if you want to have kids. And so I went and I was like, I just want to go get some tests to see what I'm working with here. And I came back and found out that I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant naturally. And that is the moment I broke as an individual. And about a week after that, I had a come to Jesus moment with a trusted advisor. And I just got on the call and just like broke down in tears. And he was like, "What's up?" And I was like, "It's not working. I hate it. Everything sucks. None of it, blah, blah, blah. It's all bad." And I was like, "I really want to do this." And I also like couldn't see myself in my agency, no, and raising a family. Like I just couldn't see that future. And I could see it with my consultancy, and I didn't want the agency anymore. I wanted the consultancy. And he was like, just do that. Go all in on the consultancy. It'll be fine. You'll work it out. It'll be fine. And yeah, I think that was like getting that notice from the doctor of like, your body is betraying you is exactly what it felt like. And then having this moment of like harsh clarity with this advisor, um, of, yeah, you've got to make some hard choices. But guess what? Tough Skittles. That's what the world of entrepreneurship and life is all about. So pull up your big girl panties and let's just fucking make some choices. And that's kind of where things started to spiral for me.
I love that you had that moment. I hate that you had that moment, but I love that you had that moment.
Yeah.
So you're sitting there and you have the clarity to realize, well, I know what I want and I just have to go after it. What was that feeling like in that moment where your path forward, maybe not the details, but where you were headed was clear?
Yeah. Well, the reality of being a business owner and realizing I wanted to change and I couldn't give a 2-week notice was like a real punch to the gut.
Mhm.
Like any normal employee was like, "I don't do this anymore. Here's my 2 weeks," right? And I was like, "Okay, well that's not my truth. So what does this look like?"
Mm.
And I was like, "Okay, this is how I want to go about it. I want to make sure that everybody is taken care of, that like nobody is harmed in the transition of this decision making. And 2, that I wanted to bring a number of people with me into this next venture. And then it was a matter of mapping it out. And that's what happened. And at the beginning of 2022, I sat down with my team and I was like, hey guys, this is where I'm at. This is what I would love to do with you. If you'd like to join me, please let me know. And they said yes, for the most part. And I was like, okay, so we need to first focus on making sure we take care of all of our existing clients and people and do everything we said we would do. And once we do that, then we'll work on this transition.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much what 2022 ended up looking like.
So you were wrapping up all your contracts, delivering all your commitments, doing all the things that you had to do to take care of everybody.
Yeah, I mean, and we signed a lot of net new revenue at the beginning of 2022 as well, because we still had revenue goals we had to hit in order to make sure everyone got paid. But I made sure that all of our clients were taken care of. I gave them like transition teams. I made sure all of our contractors were taken care of to make sure that their income wasn't going to be impacted. And then I made that transition with certain team members to kind of make that leap with me.
Yeah. And so when you think of that final leap, the leap happened and you now have these two parts. What was the saying goodbye like for this one part?
That's a good question. There's a lot of feelings, man. There's a lot of feelings. In many ways, I always referred to Brainchild as my first baby. And so in a lot of ways, I felt like I had failed. I felt like I had built something and I had abandoned and failed everyone who had ever given me the great gift of being able to make it a reality. And I wrestled with that for a long time and eventually came around to realizing that my coach at the time had said something along the lines of, what if you're in a house and this is just one window? Or what if you're, at running a race, but now you're stepping up to the starting line? Like maybe Brainchild was just the beginning. It wasn't even where the journey really started. And like that mindset really helped me of like, oh, I didn't fail the race. It was just a warm up I didn't know I had signed up for, But yeah, there were a lot of feelings that went into it. But my biggest one was just, I didn't want to let people down. I think that's the number one thing we need to keep in mind in business is I don't care if you're a solopreneur, but we are nothing without the people we surround ourselves with. And so that was really important to me to just make sure that everyone who was involved or had been involved just knew that I was so grateful for their belief, their loyalty, their talents, their all the things, and just try to take it with grace.
It's so beautiful. I interviewed someone this morning. It's a very rare day because I did 2 in one day, which I normally don't do. But they had a very interesting and very relevant comment, which was, and I might butcher the wording here, but you can't control other people's success. So they had to have the realization that other people had to create their own success. And what I'm hearing here is the mirror of that, the second side of the coin, which is, and how you support the success of yourself and others and how you honor them is also critically important. And I love that because they're both true.
Yeah, I think, we can only control ourselves, right? Ourselves and our actions and our beliefs and all those things. But I do think that we can do our best to set up others up for success. At some point, it's up to them if they want to take it or whatever path they choose to take. But for me, it was just important to make sure that I had done everything I could to make sure that the people who had trusted me did not feel wronged in any capacity.
Which is amazing and beautiful.
And I don't know that I did a perfect job of it, but I sure tried.
So
that's
the amazing and beautiful
like,
part.
That wasn't me. I'm really sorry. I tried really hard.
Well, and that's the amazing and beautiful part because we can't actually, everybody is so unique with all of their own needs that we can't possibly honor everything that everyone needs at all times. I had a great mentor who once told me I was crying after a really difficult decision I had to make. And she said, crying means you're still in the right job because crying just means it matters and you care. And the moment that you stop crying, you shouldn't be in that job anymore because it
Mm,
means you've taken the time to consider their perspective, how it interfaces with the broader like construct and your own feelings of the matter. And at the end of the day, you're still moving forward with what you believe is the best decision given all of that combined because we can't honor just a part. We have many parts that we have to protect and honor. That was a
absolutely.
powerful statement for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're complicated humans.
Sure.
It's not, as much as I adore the colors black and white, life is anything but most of the time. Most of the time.
And you put a bunch of us humans together in business and voila. So so you said it was a series of like we're gonna rewind a little bit. You said it was a series of kind of slaps in the face and all of that year. Was it clear to you what those slaps in the face were telling you or the all the things? Was the messaging clear or what was it like to go through that year?
At the time, it was not clear. At the time, it was you. I think you started this episode by saying we're stuck in the mud or something along those
Mhm.
lines. That's very much how it felt. I very much felt like I had one foot over here and one foot over there, and like I was trying to like run a race with my legs straddling some
Mhm.
imaginary line. But it wasn't until there's a quote by author Greg McEwen,
Mhm.
which I found at the beginning of 2022, which like just shed so much light on as I looked backwards on my 2021. He said, "When you focus on what you lack, you lose what you have.
Mm.
When you focus on what you have, you gain what you lack."
Mm.
And in retrospect, what I realized I had done was I had focused so much on what I lacked in all of 2021 that I started to lose the things that I had. And for me, that was very much like great relationships in my team and my culture.
Mhm.
And some of that was things like I thought I was protecting them by keeping certain things to myself because I was like, oh, you don't need to worry about that. I've got it. I'll take care of it. But in doing that, I had left voids that they started to fill on their own, which
Mhm.
is natural human
Yeah.
inclination, right? But I didn't realize it in the moment. I thought I was protecting them. I thought I was honoring myself and doing things that I wanted to do. But I realized when we had a Zoom call, we broke it open. I was like, "All right, guys, let's lay it all out there. Here's where I'm at. This is what's going on for me. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I need, all these things." And everyone had the chance to go around, and we all ended up crying,
Mhm.
like, but it was this really beautiful moment. And when it was towards the end of, I think probably like Q3, where everyone had something that they needed to say. Everyone had something they needed to get off their chest. And because we created this safe space that, nobody was going to judge you or jump down your throat if you said
Mhm.
something, it was just like this real cleansing moment
Mm.
where we were like, okay, that needed to happen.
Mhm.
So sorry about that. Thanks for sticking it out. Now we know how to proceed more effectively.
Mhm.
And so I think for me, like that's kind of how just a lot of that year ended up stacking up. And then the end of the year came to a head and I was like, Kylie, what are you
Mhm.
doing? And yeah, when you run a business and you're responsible for other people's livelihoods, it's a lot of pressure.
It is. It is. You start to know that you aren't only putting food on your own table, you're putting food on the table of other people and their families. You start to carry that burden
Yeah.
of to some degree, never quite as much as your own, but you carry that burden in the back of your mind.
Which I take as a great gift as
Mhm.
well, like the ability
Mhm.
to be able to do that.
Mhm.
I've always felt so fortunate and grateful. Like if I can create the opportunity for somebody to provide for their family, that's such a gift. But I think what is the saying? With great responsibility comes or great power comes great responsibility. Not saying that it's power per se, but
Mhm.
the power of being able to gift somebody this is also still a responsibility to make sure you're making decisions that allows you to continue to be able to do that thing.
Yes, yes. I had a great interview, one of my past podcast interviews with Jessie. Last name's escaping me because I'm horrible with names, but for those of you who can look it up, it's Jessie. Jessie talked about that and how you have to make decisions that are in the financial best interests and the strategic best interest of the company in order to be able to put food on the table for other people. So making sure that you're looking at same thing if you're not taking care of your family. And what you alluded to, Kylie, which I think we're going to get into next, is that if you're not taking care of yourself and your own needs, then it becomes impossible to put the food on the table for other people. So let's talk about your journey to finding alignment and what you learned through that process.
Yeah. Well, here's a shameless plug for coaches. I think everyone should have a coach. I think everyone should also have a therapist, just for the record.
I have both.
Yeah, I think everybody should. And, we oftentimes, from a business standpoint, we talk about a board of directors, but I think we should also consider that same concept for ourselves as individuals is a board of advisors as a human being, because there's also oftentimes a lot of things that we can't see about ourselves until somebody else points it out. So for me, that journey very much was facilitated by a coach I had throughout that whole process. And just even creating the space to reflect and ask the questions of what do you want? And what does this look like? And how is this shaking out for you? There were a lot of books I read at that time. I mean, I like to read, so I'm still reading a lot of books, different books, but books, podcasts, questions. I journaled a lot in 2021, which was really helpful for me. Also very helpful now that I want to go back and write a book. And I'm like, oh, good. I already wrote part of this down. Great. I'll just copy and paste this over, But for me, at least, it was helpful to articulate it and get it out. So whether that was through journaling or working with a coach or a therapist, there was a lot there. And I think my greatest realization came at the end of 2021 when, as I alluded to a little bit earlier off prior to the jumping on, but we need to define success for ourselves. That was my biggest takeaway, because I started 2021 and I was like, yeah, I'm going to do it. We're going to hit 7 figures in revenue. We're going to build this big team and we're going to be wildly successful because that's what that means. Yeah. And maybe it's just me. And maybe I was living on an island and everyone listening to this is like, no, bro, you just missed the memo. That's not what it is. But that was not my reality for most of 2021. And I came to the end of the year and I was like, what am I doing? I hate this. And even if I was successful in building this version, I would not be happy with the outcome. That would still suck. And again, this is my personal journey, so everybody's is different and there's lots of ways to go about it, right? But that was my biggest realization was, oh shit, you can't be looking at your neighbor. You can't be looking at the person down the street. You can't be looking at the influencer on Instagram or TikTok or wherever and saying, oh, so-and-so has so many followers, or so-and-so has a membership program with 15,000 members, or whatever it is. A, you have no idea what it took to get there. B, they might be making $10 million a year, but it might be costing them $999 million to make that. And you might be actually far more successful than they are, making $250,000 a year and working 20 hours a week. Perspective, people. And I say that to myself.
I love your little rants. They're awesome, Kylie. Rant away. It's great.
There's a harsh reality, man. It's just, you got to define success for yourself. And I think that comes from a very deep sense of self-awareness. So I had also started 2021, I had started going through coaching training. So I'm now a certified coach because my coach had been so influential on me. I wanted to learn more about this craft. So as I went through that training program to become a coach for other people, it also helped me on my own journey to, shine that mirror a little bit more on myself to ask some of those deep questions and those hard questions internally. And I think that's what we all have to do. Like, we have to ask those hard questions in order to get to the other side, whatever the other side is. We have to go deep inside before we can go to the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. And for those of you listening who haven't been through a coaching training, I think Kylie and I both have been through some good ones. And it is a process where, I mean, number one, you have to bring your own stuff and real stories. So, number two, you're taught that you cannot create space for someone else if you are not in the mindset and space yourself. So, you do a lot of self work. And number three, most of your learning is in dyads or triads where you're actually coaching someone else and then they coach you. And then there's an observer who gives feedback. And so, you spend so many hours during these trainings, not only learning how to coach someone else and show up for them, but also receiving it. And you do a crap ton of self work. So
Yeah.
I totally know what you're referring to, Kylie. It's like you can't
Yeah.
walk out of that program the same person unless you truly
No.
didn't fully engage and lean. So
Yeah. And if you do walk out of it the same person, you definitely did something wrong.
yeah, or it's in the wrong field.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, that's a little bit of my journey and like my big takeaway. And that's why I took that message and I brought it to Rain 9, my consultancy. And I was like, this is important. This is what people need to know. And so now I'm taking it to stages. I'm building programs. I've built programs around it because I want people to be able to figure this out faster and less painfully than I have. And so I ended up reverse engineering what I found my journey to be and adding my own, touch to it in hopes of helping other people.
That's amazing. I love it. So what was that journey? If you were to, since you've done such a lot of work deconstructing your journey, what was it?
So again, I think first people need to define success for themselves. And then I was like, okay, well, how do you define defining success? And for me, what I believe that to be is first we have to find our personal purpose. And one of the shortcuts I talk about in my speech, I read the book Think Like a Monk by Jay Shetty, highly recommended. But one of the biggest takeaways I got out of that was serve the pain you know best. Like it just cuts straight through all the crap, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of warm-up exercises that I do with people, etc. But at the core of it, it's like we've all experienced a lot of life, the good and the bad. And it's like the shit that really hurt, that is almost always, when I do this work with people, almost always the thing that they say influenced them the most or impacted them the most. And they want to help other people get through that without having to go through it the same way that they did. And so defining your personal purpose to make sure that you are living in alignment with your personal purpose. So one is define your personal purpose. Two is figure out how you want to spend your time and energy. And we go through a lot of exercises in the programs that I've built to help identify that. But, once you identify why you're here and what you're supposed to be doing, you got to figure out how you're going to spend your time and energy and leverage your unique strengths and skill sets to the best possible power in order to fulfill that. And then one of my favorite questions is figuring out what you want, right? So, okay, what do you want in life? And we break that down like personally, what do you want? Financially, what do you want? Because most of the things we want in life aren't free. Some of them, most are not. What are the professional benchmarks and milestones you need to hit so that you can hit the financial ones, so that you can hit the personal ones? And then because I believe that when we stop learning, we stop growing. The fourth category is areas of growth. Like, how do you want to continue to learn and grow so that you can continue to build as a human? And then mapping that out in an action plan so that, it's not just all in our heads. And then the last step, because a lot of us, especially type A people, feel like we have to do this all by ourselves. You don't. There's a beautiful book by Dan Sullivan called Who Not How. And he wrote an entire book on this one concept that you don't have to figure out how to do everything. You just need to figure out who should do what, and they'll figure out how. And so the last step is understanding the resources and the dollars and the knowledge needed to make this all happen. And so that's how we define success for ourselves as individuals. So I break that down as purpose energy, action, and knowledge, which spells peak for those of you who are tracking. And then we go through a similar process on the business side.
And so what I'm hearing is, as in your work, because kind of getting back to this workaholism thing and, our relationship with work, I'm hearing that for what you've learned, alignment means being really clear about what's important to you and then making sure that what's important in your work is intersecting with it. That's really what I'm hearing.
And I would even like tweak that a bit to say, making sure that your work is supporting
I
the
like
things
that.
that are
Yes.
really like, so that's why we use the word alignment because,
Mhm.
you could be doing really meaningful work, but if it's ultimately not aligned with the things that matter most to you, it doesn't mean that you're wasting your time, but there might be a better solution for you.
Yeah. At the beginning of the conversation, you said I might be the only one that has this lack of alignment, or this when you went through the whole agency thing. The answer is no. So I had 75 clients at the time that I sold my last business. And part of the intake is we went through this whole process. And I will tell you, I can't tell you the percentage, but a good chunk of them, because part of the intake, I talked to them all. A good chunk of them was like, yeah, I want to make $1,000,000. And I'd be like, great, why?
Yeah,
What's it
exactly.
for? What's it gonna do?
What are you going to do
Okay,
with
so let's
that?
talk about it. Like if we have that's the compass. Like it's not the doubt. And then you have to unpack what's behind it. So no,
Mhm.
you're not alone. A lot of people do it. What was behind it for you?
To achieve
Yeah.
success with my agency?
Yeah. From what the world gave you as a definition and that,
Mhm.
that superficial definition you were describing, what was it? What was the story behind it for you?
I think I just wanted to quote unquote prove myself. Part of what I realized about my story as I built out my keynote specifically was the pain I know best is that for a long time, for all of my 20s, I was told that I wasn't enough by so many people and that I couldn't do it on my own. And I had a lot of people question if I could make this work. And it was like, for me, I was like, fuck you, watch me, you know? And I was like, tell me I can't. Just tell me I can't, And it was this blind defiance, which is not healthy, by the way. I don't recommend blind defiance. It doesn't really tend to work out well for anyone.
I sense a power, like you said when you were saying that, like, really, really, I'm coming. What is that same, like, what does that look like for you now? How do you get that same sense of focus, of drive, of propelling you forward? What
Yeah.
fuels it now?
What fuels it now is space. Like I have worked really hard over the last couple years to be able to identify and then name that I need space. And that for me is also synonymous with time. Like oftentimes it feels like, oh, there's just not enough time. There's not enough time. It's like time and space. I've done a lot of mindset work. And so I highly recommend that. It changes everything. And two mantras that have really helped me over the last couple years is this is happening for me, not to me, which I think it's very easy to take a victim mindset.
Mhm.
But if we look at everything as a gift, makes us significantly stronger and better equipped to handle whatever comes next. And then two, trust the process. Just trust the process. Like I don't consider myself a religious person by any means, but I'm a type A control freak. And so I have plenty of spreadsheets and I have plenty of game plans and I have all of it written down. And sometimes I just have to let that go and
Mhm.
understand that maybe this was not the way it was supposed to happen for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe there's something better around the corner and I just couldn't even imagine that for myself.
Mm.
And so this is happening for me, not to me, and trust the process. And I'll also say that I binge watched Ted Lasso for like this entire period of time, which also just helped me elevate as a human being. Ted Lasso will restore your faith in humanity. And I seriously think I should watch an episode like every day. I feel like it would just make me a better human.
Awesome. I love that.
So yeah.
Okay, so now comes the part where I get to attempt to recap. And I love that your journey had so many different hills and mountains and meadows that you got to walk through. So we'll try to do this justice.
Okay. Let's see.
Okay, so what I first heard is that you had a beautiful word for it, but a level of defiance that kept you moving forward towards a marker of success that no longer was important to you, but it was what you had defined as success at that time and what you felt was supposed to be success. So at that point, you had a series of things happen that were not feeling well and working well, but you couldn't quite figure out why at the time because you were just laser focused on moving forward until the bottom fell out. And the bottom fell out when you realized that you couldn't do all these things and be all these things at the same time. It was not working. You were failing all of the things because you were trying to be all the things. Which is always like a moment for so many of us.
Yep.
That's when you had to make choices. And I heard you had to say no to some things to be able to say yes to the things that mattered the most. And what you said yes to was in alignment with your personal definition of success so that your work could support, I love that word, your work supported what was important to you as a human.
Yep.
So putting the human first. Then the journey from there was working through, you have this peak model that you work through, which is, I'm going to try to get this right, your purpose, your energy and time, action plan, and knowledge. How do you support making it all happen and continuing the learning process? But you did that for both work and personal and then lined them up. So you knew that work would support furthering yourself as a human.
Yep.
Sounds like you did a lot of putting the human at the center of things.
That was very intentional.
And you did that with your team too. It wasn't just about you. But when you did make the transition from one business to another, you applied that same care and that same human focus on those that surrounded you and recognized that you actually could ask for help. Yep. And that all those people that you showed up for would show up for you.
Yes.
You created your personal board of advisors so that you could get different perspectives, got all the right team in place. And now you are launching and successfully running this amazing business, speaking, but you're doing it from a place fueled by space versus that original rewind years ago, that defiance that was once driving you. How'd they do?
You nailed it. You nailed it. That was great. Yeah. No, nailed it.
Do you have any final parting words of wisdom for this group, Kiley?
Just be honest with yourself. Just be honest with yourself and be gentle.
I love that. I feel the gentleness surrounding me. So thank you, Kiley.
Yeah, thank you.
Guys, check out Kiley. She is amazing. A keynote speaker, international award-winning serial entrepreneur, and small business advisor with 20 years of entrepreneurial experience. Woot, woot. And not only did you build this marketing agency, but you successfully exited it. You knew when to walk away from it. And you've now launched Rain IX. Is it Rain IX? Is that how you pronounce it?
Rain 9.
Rain 9.
Roman numerals, baby.
I should have prepped for that one. Look at that, guys. Rain 9. I love it. I love it. We're her executive leadership consultancy, and now you have helped hundreds of women launch, leverage, and exit your business. I love it. She also has a podcast, guys, so check her out at Welcome to Aloma.
Yeah, check it out.
Thanks, guys.